So hi there, I'm back again with another ranty mental health video. But you know how it is sometimes when you have a rant about one thing and it's suddenly like you've grabbed the end of a ball of wool and it just unspools all around you, and suddenly all you see is this tangle of chaos and all the ways that you've been screwed over in your life, essentially by ableism. And that's what I want to rant about in this video, because I think any of us who have dealt with mental health issues in our lives, we are used to the really unfortunate and crappy fact that there are a huge amount of people in the world, from your friends, your family members, your employers, but even doctors as well. They do not see mental health issues as being as valid, serious, or even real as physical health issues, because of the fact that most mental health issues are invisible. There aren't really ways of quantifying the severity of a mental illness. And I think anyone who's not personally lived through stuff like depression, anxiety, they really can't, they can't understand it. You know, people who've never had something like depression, they equate it to, well, you know, I remember being sad about something once, you know, oh, I lost my job, my dog died or something, and I was sad for a while, and, you know, I eventually I went for some healthy walks, and I got a new dog, and I got over it. And, you know, they'll try and equate it to that. Or if it's anxiety, they'll be like, oh, well, you know, I get nervous doing public speaking, I know what it's like to be nervous. And it's like, oh, just stop talking, just don't do it. But I feel I should talk about this personally, because I have landed in the rather unfortunate position of now experiencing both physical and mental health issues, which means that I suddenly get to see both sides of the coin. This is the kind of bullshit you face with mental health issues, and then you can walk into exactly the same situation with a physical health issue, and it goes a whole different direction. People take you seriously. I've literally had to make a freaking list here, but I want to jump straight in with the first real experience I had of ableism when I was 19 years old. And at this point, I had no physical health issues at all. I was physically completely healthy. Mentally though, depression, self-harm and anorexia were my big problems at that point. So at this point, my mental health issues weren't even invisible anymore. I was really quite a low weight. You could see, you know, okay, you kind of look like you're dying of something. And I had gone to my GP, I think just to chase up my therapy, because at this point I had been assessed for therapy. I mean, the therapy rant is coming. There is going to be a rant shortly about my terrible experiences with NHS therapy that really have jaded me to therapy for life. That's a whole other video that's coming. But at this point, I was 19 years old. I just went to my GP because I had been waiting at this point for about 9 or 10 months after I'd been assessed as high risk due to my low weight, my self-harm, the severity of my depression, suicidal ideation, you know, all the things that they tick. They had assessed me as being really high risk, and so you think you're going to get rushed through. Well, I'd been waiting for 9 or 10 months at this point, so I had no therapy, I had no help whatsoever, and I'd just gone back to the doctor to be like, did someone lose my form? Like, what is going on? Like, I really need this, what is going on? And while I was there, this doctor told me, you know, why aren't you on disability benefit? Like, you're clearly too sick to work. Why are you not on disability benefit? And that was like a mind-blowing moment for me as it was. Like, it never even occurred to me that, like, being mentally ill could qualify you for disability benefit. And I don't know whether this is a British person thing, whether this is like an 80s kid thing, whether this is just the culture of my family. But I had always grown up thinking, like, mental illnesses are not really real enough for anything like that. You can't qualify as disabled with a mental illness. You can't claim benefit with a mental illness because it's just something you need to go to therapy, deal with, man up, get over. You know, you don't qualify as sick, really. You're just being stupid. You know, was basically the culture of my family. So at this point, actually, when I was 18, I was given about £3,500 inheritance from my gran. She gave it to us while she was still alive because she wanted to see us enjoy it and also to kind of dodge some inheritance tax. But everybody I know who was given an inheritance of that kind of size, they did something amazing with it. You know, whether they saved up for their first home, whether they put it into a business, whether they traveled around the world, they did something with it. Me, I have literally nothing to show for that inheritance because I just got it and it was like, I'm too sick to work and I didn't even know I could be on disability benefits. So I just lived on that money and nothing mattered to me at that point. It wasn't like I was even into clothes or makeup or anything, like nothing mattered to me. So it wasn't like I even went, oh my God, look at this money. Like I'm going to buy an amazing pair of boots. Like, no, I just pissed it away. It just got pissed away. And then, you know, when that was pissed away, I was just living off my family, which was another huge problem with my mental health, was feeling like I'm too sick to work. But then I just felt like I am such a financial burden on everybody and everybody would be happier if I was dead because all I do is leech and take and I'm useless and I'm a burden. And, you know, so that was like another level of bullshit on my head. So when this doctor told me, you could actually be on disability benefit, you know, while you are waiting for therapy, you can be looked after and you won't have to feel like a burden. I was like, this was such a weight off my shoulders. So she said, anyway, come back in a week or two and we will talk about this. We will get it sorted out. So I was thinking, oh my God, this is great. You know, okay, so I'm still on the waiting list for therapy and it's not getting any closer to the top, but there is a weight lifting off my shoulders. So anyway, I go back when she told me to go back in a week or two. And she was clearly in a bad mood already. But I walked in, she took one look at me. And the minute I mentioned anything about the benefits and, you know, are we going to get this disability sorted out? Like, what's the next step? She just said, no, I'm sorry. I'm not doing that for you. I'm not going to sign you off for disability benefit. And I was like, why? And she said, because you're clearly not trying. You're not trying, so I'm not going to do it for you. And me being this tongue-tied, autistic, useless teenager, I didn't argue back. I didn't say anything. I was just like, oh, because I already, you know, the culture of my family was, you're not entitled to that anyway. So her saying this, I was just like, oh. But the thing is, it's like, disability benefit is for when you are too sick to work. So the fact that I had walked in, she had looked at me and gone, you know, you look like you've lost more weight, you look really shitty, you look like you haven't been taking care of yourself. If I had something like cancer and I'd walked in and it was obvious that I was sicker, it would have been like, okay, we need to speed this up. We need to get you on benefits now so that everything is sorted and you don't have to worry about it. That is how you would treat a sick person going on to sick leave. But instead, because it was a mental illness, she was basically using disability benefit, which was a right. She was using it as bribery for me to try and get better. And again, I had no therapy at this point. I had nobody trying to help me in any way. So I don't know quite why she thought I would suddenly walk back in 2 weeks, having gained 30 pounds and suddenly looking miraculous. I don't know where this woman got off. And one of the things that drives me maddest in the world is looking back on these events when I was treated like crap as a teenager and I hadn't learned to communicate yet. I hadn't learned to fight my own corner and I just took it. And so, you know, I just went back home, continued feeling like a burden. You know, when I got my inheritance, just burned through that and got nothing out of it. And, you know, that was my first really, really crappy experience with that. So roll on to 2009, and this was when I'd been working, I'd, you know, managed to adult a bit. I'd been working full time for a few years. It was crushing the life out of me, literally giving me a stomach ulcer from the stress, but I was doing it until I wasn't doing it anymore, until it drove me crazy and I had a nervous breakdown and ended up with crippling anxiety. And again, the culture of my family and the culture of mental illness isn't real. I didn't even know what word to use to describe anxiety. There's me like going to the doctors, like sobbing my eyes out and saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. There's a feeling in my chest all the time. There's this feeling. I don't know what it is. You know, like I have anxiety. It wasn't even something I could say. Like I didn't have a word. you know, and the term nervous breakdown, again, it's like, okay, within the space of a week, you went from a totally functioning adult to a sobbing nutter who can't even leave the house. But again, I was like, nervous breakdown? Well, that's a very, very, you know, dramatic word. I don't really know what to call it. And it was only when I got phoned up by my ex-employer trying to bring me back, and I was like, I kind of can't work at the moment. I didn't have any words, and he was like, oh, so you had a nervous breakdown? I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of what it is. But anyway, during this year, the first ridiculous experience I had was going to the doctors again, trying to get some kind of anti-anxiety medication or therapy or something. And I saw this locum doctor who was this white guy, looked like he was in about his late 30s, you know, normal looking dude. But I walk in and there's me like sobbing my eyes out going, please, please, please help me with something. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going mad. He took one look at the pentacle around my neck and said, you know why you've got problems, don't you? It's because you've been messing with evil spirits. Literally. This was a doctor. You think they're going to be men of science? I'm told you are having these problems because you are basically possessed because you're wearing a Wiccan pentacle. And I just kind of legged it out of there, sobbing my eyes out. I didn't know what to even say to this guy. And again, I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have happened if I was there for something physical. You know, if I'd gone in and said, hey, take a look at my ingrowing toenail, I don't think he would have said, oh, you've got that because you've been messing with evil spirits. But I mean, that one was really way out of left field. That was a weird experience. But anyway, during this whole ghastly 2009 nervous breakdown year, I was eventually put onto disability benefit, that we'd gone to Citizens Advice Bureau and just been like, you know, what do we do with this person financially? Like, my stepdad came with me. It was basically like, what do we do with this person financially when they cannot work, they're clearly crazy, they just can't do a thing. And, you know, it took going to the Citizens Advice Bureau to be told, you know, if you can't work, you can go on disability benefit. Sick leave is there for being sick. It doesn't matter what kind of sick it is sick leave, you know? So I went on to disability benefit, you know, and that was a huge weight off my mind. But as soon as I was called up to go and be assessed, which at that point I had to go and do in person, it was very, very clear immediately that all the questions that they have for disability benefit, they are not geared towards mental illness. They are only geared towards physical disability, and only certain physical disabilities anyway. You know, it was things like mobility they were asking me about. It was like, can you walk 500 meters unaided? Things like that. You know, can you bend down to touch your toes? It was very much about physical restrictions. And the only mental type questions they had were basically regarding people who are mentally handicapped, as in, I don't know what better word to use, but people who are mentally retarded. Those were the questions that it was aimed at. You know, it was things like, can people understand you when you speak? Can you understand a simple question? You know, it was stuff like that, which all of these, there were no questions that related to, you know, your average kinds of mental illness. So while I was in the room with this woman, you know, every time she would ask me these questions, and I'd be like, yeah, I can walk 500 meters unaided. Yeah, people can understand me when I speak. But, you know, and I was not, you know, she's not asking the questions that matter. So I kept trying to say, yeah, but these are the things I can't do. This is what's going on. This is what's keeping me off work. And every time I started trying to explain, she would just shut me down and just be like, that is not relevant. That is not on the thing. And I was getting really stressed out. I was literally like in tears at this point. And when I got the feedback after about a week or two, it was basically like, you don't qualify, we're kicking you off. So that was a whole bunch of stress. Like, to this day, brown envelopes with my name on landing on the mat, it's like, but anyway, I appealed this, and that gave me a kind of 3-month grace period while they were sorting that out. Unfortunately, by the time the appeal came up, I never actually had to go, because at that point I had got to a point where I was better and I was going to college at that point, and so the whole thing was fine. But the point at which I saw how different it was was when my physical health issues started in October 2013, which was my final year of uni, and the one really, really tiny blessing out of this gigantic clusterfuck, which was my health just going to shit in a way that literally made me nearly kill myself, because I was like, how am I supposed to live with this? How am I supposed to live with all the plans I have in life and all the things I'm used to being able to do suddenly being sliced down to like, this is your life now, this is your life, and this is going to be your life forever, and it's quite possible it's just going to get worse and worse. And that was a gigantic headfuck and not enjoyable in any way. But the tiny, tiny, tiny silver lining was, you know what, now you have this health issue that people see as legitimate. You know, all your life, mental illness, no matter how severe it is, no one sees it as legitimate. But now you've got physical health issues, you can go on disability. You're not going to end up stacking shelves at Tesco part-time, even though you've got a degree and you're capable of so much more, but you're not capable of so much more because, you know, Asperger's, etc., leaves you with so few places you can go in the world. And because I was diagnosed late, nobody had, you know, I think if I had been diagnosed with Asperger's early, I think it should have been focused on, okay, what jobs can you do from home? Like, what can you do from home? That would have been the way for me to have a sensible, stable career. But, you know, so anyway, the small silver lining was, okay, you go on disability and you actually have time to work on your writing, and you have hella incentive to make a living from creative stuff, because it's the only thing you're ever going to be able to do, because now you're too sick to work any normal job ever. But anyway, the forms again. When I signed up for disability benefit and I was assessed, this time I was assessed just with a form rather than an appointment, but the form, it was so different filling it in about physical health issues that suddenly all the things I could say, they did tick the boxes, that it was like, you know, yes, I am incapable of operating machinery and driving cars quite a lot. You know, my medication makes me sleepy, it makes me dizzy. You know, yeah, there is a lot of time that I can't understand simple questions because I'm so screwed in the head by these reactions and by my medication that, you know, basically I am like an incapacitated vegetable quite a lot of the time. And, you know, all the stuff I was able to say, when they came back to me this time, it wasn't, you don't qualify. What they actually said was, you qualify so much that we're going to put you on a higher benefit that I didn't even know existed, which is basically aimed at, okay, you're really screwed, you're basically a permanent write-off, so we're not going to force you to go to the job centre and have anxiety attacks and do things you can't do because we're trying to force you into work. They put me on the higher benefit of like, yeah, you're screwed, you're a write-off, just send us a doctor's note every now and then and we won't hassle you. That was the difference. You know, that was the difference coming with physical health issues. I really saw this with my friend Gretchen, who died of anorexia in 2014, that she had been applying for disability due to all her mental illnesses, but mostly the eating disorder. And she had been told, no, you can't have it. No, you're not sick enough. And she had appealed. But whereas in this country, if you appeal, you stay on the benefit until your trial. In America, it seems like if you appeal, you get nothing until the appeal goes through. So Gretchen went to trial and they told her, oh, yeah, actually, clearly we can see you look like a walking corpse. So yes, we're gonna let you have your disability benefit. That happened about 2 or 3 weeks before she died in her sleep. And there are so many cases like that here too. You know, there are the people with the physical illnesses who are deemed fit for work and then they drop dead of heart attack. Someone even dropped dead from diabetic complications in the queue at the job centre after being forced back to work. But the people with mental illnesses, they're the people who can't fight their corner. You know, there was a guy who was in the paper recently who was declared fit for work, who had severe depression, I think possibly schizophrenia too, and he literally starved to death. Like, you know, they found him dead in his flat. He was emaciated. There was no food in the house at all because he'd had no money at all, you know, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he starved to death because he wasn't mentally able to to have the motivation and the know-how to fight his corner, to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, find a food bank, find some help, appeal the decision. He didn't have it in him, so he just starved to death. And there are still more who've frozen to death because, you know, their money's been cut. They've not been able to cope with it and to fight their corner. And this is the thing, you know, when you do this to people with mental illnesses, you really are doing it to people who cannot fight back. They are not in a position to deal with the paperwork and to deal with putting themselves out there. And when it came to Gretchen, I think that this disability cutoff was a huge reason that she died, and that she took her eating disorder so far before she died that, you know, I'd known her for about 13, 15 years, something like that. And, you know, she'd been eating disordered the whole time, but I had never seen her take it to such extremes. And, you know, it was obvious that this was kind of like a two-pronged fork. The number one, you're telling an anorexic person you're not sick enough. Now, anorexia is an incredibly competitive disease, and it's also a disease of self-doubt. And telling someone you are not sick enough to deserve treatment, you are not sick enough, it's basically a challenge. It's basically, you think I don't look sick enough? You think I look too fat to be eating disordered? I will freaking show you what sick looks like. That is exactly what happens in the brain of an eating disordered person when you tell them they're not sick enough. So she did. She proved it and more. I will show you what sick looks like. But number two, they left her with no money. They left her being essentially a burden on her family. And, you know, when you have that feeling that you don't really enjoy living, you don't enjoy your life, and then you feel like this life that is a misery to you is just a burden on the people you love, you do start to think they would be happier if I was dead. They would be happy without me. And I think as a combination of this two-pronged fork, you know, she absolutely went balls to the wall with it. And the really shit thing is that, you know, I think it could have been an upswing. You know, within the month before her death, she got a new apartment, she got a great new therapist, she got the disability money coming through. It was like, this is an upswing. This is, I can see this changing for you. But at that point, the damage was done. You know, 2 or 3 weeks later, she died in her sleep, and that was that. And, you know, that I don't think would have happened if it had been a physical illness. If it had been something you could quantify, I don't think that would have happened. And this point is a half-hour rant, but just the final thing, the final thing I want to add is the other prejudice when it comes to mental health issues, and particularly seeing your doctors. But to be honest, anyone, friends, family, doctors, if you have ever on your records, on your medical records, if you've ever had anxiety there, anytime you go to the doctor with a physical symptom that is not immediately visible, you will be told, oh, it's just anxiety. It's just anxiety. And the people around you, your friends and family, oh, I'm sure it's just anxiety. You know, there are so many stories of people who come down with things like endometriosis, polycystic ovary syndrome, EDS, and various other autoimmune conditions. And it's particularly women, you know, and female conditions, that you walk in with these things and you're basically treated as a hysterical woman who's just being hysterical and hypochondriac and crazy. Which is why so many of these diseases, literally, you know, the average diagnosis time is 7 years. 7 years of battling with doctors and saying, this is real, and fighting your corner and researching on the internet before you actually get a diagnosis. And, you know, and it was much the same with me, just because of having anxiety on your records, no one takes you freaking seriously about anything. So yes, there are many frustrations, but yes, the stark contrast when it comes to disability benefit has been the craziest one. That, you know, that doctor when I was 19, basically treating it not as a right but as a bribe. Like, I'm going to leave you feeling like a burden on your family. I'm going to leave you penniless. I mean, if I had been living alone at that point, I hadn't had my family to lean on, I would have been homeless. You know, if I had have vitally needed that disability benefit, I would have been homeless, because she was expecting someone who had been anorexic for years to miraculously turn around without therapy, because then they would deserve sick benefit, but they got sicker, so they don't deserve that. To this day, that blows my fucking mind. But anyway, this is a gigantic tangential waffle at this point, so I shall literally shut up. But yeah, if you want to have your rant below, feel free to go ahead and rant, because this is nonsense. And I think, honestly, the more we can share our stories with the world, the better. That much as it's great to have a lot of kind of positive mental illness stories shared, that seems to be the main kind of let's kind of raise awareness of mental health issues. It tends to be the positive side that people talk about. And people saying, I'm schizophrenic, but actually, I'm not dangerous, I'm not really scary, you don't have to be afraid of me, things like that. Or here's me looking miserable, and here's me all done up, I am still the same person with depression. These tend to be the stories that are shared, but I don't think people talk enough about the struggles kind of behind closed doors, and the struggles that are kind of shoved under the table, which is, all the people who have genuine health issues, genuine health issues that are oftentimes making them too sick to work and too sick to fight their own corner when it comes to the finances they need to live. And understanding that they are people too, they are trying their best. And if you don't understand these things, if you've never had a mental health issue yourself, which, one of my stepbrothers is one of these people who's like, nothing has ever gone wrong for him in his life. And some of the things he has said to me over my life relating to my mental health issues are things I will never be able to forgive him for. And I think if you're one of these people who has never experienced a mental health issue, has no patience with anyone, is completely unable to empathize with people who have mental illnesses, I think just get out of the fucking kitchen. Just get out of it. Just do not even comment. Do not come at them with, if you drink more water, this will be better. I've heard that if you eat a spoonful of cinnamon a day, you'll suddenly feel fine. Don't come at them with these things, and particularly do not come at them with the criticism and stop being a dull scrounger, just sort it out, just man up, stop being a misery guts. Don't come at them with that stuff, because it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone. I don't think anyone ever with a mental health issue has been suddenly cured by a family member being deeply cruel to them. Believe me, if you have a severe mental health issue, I don't think anyone can be crueler to you than you already are in your head. And having that suddenly coming out of nowhere from the people in the world that you think you can rely on the most is about the most damaging thing that anyone can do to you. So, if you are one of these people who doesn't have experience of it and cannot empathise, just shut up and leave it to someone else, and ideally try and educate yourself. Read some books, and not just educational books, but literally, first-hand experience type books like The Bell Jar and things. Read those. Try and get into a first-person perspective of actually what it's like. Because one of the things I am going to shut up, but one of the things that really smacked me in the face recently and made me think, geez, that's what it's like, was when I was tidying my room recently, and I came across in my cupboard this sack full of writings and scribblings and drawings that I did from about the ages of, I guess, 13 to 19. So when I was really, really depressed, self-harming, eating disordered, a lot of these writings are actually written in blood. And just the amount of these outpourings of absolute despair and misery and pain and literal pleading for someone to help me, and wondering, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do to end up in this life? And how am I supposed to go on? That was what it was, in this sack full, years and years and years. And when I was that age, that had been my whole life. That was all I had ever known. And seeing that again was like, Jesus, the idea that there are still so many people in the world who that is their reality. I think when you see something like that, it's like it does help you empathize. So maybe that is something that I should share at some point, some of those pieces. And maybe it's something that you guys should share if you have anything similar, if you have any like diary outpourings, or you know, anything where you've just really just poured out how bad you're feeling. Maybe those are things to show to people in your life who are deeply just lack empathy, lack understanding, lack sympathy. You know, maybe, because that tends to be the way I try and communicate these days with family members and things. I write it down and I give it to them. Like, even the ones I live with, it's like having conversations gets heated and you trip over your words and you don't come out with what you want to say, and you always leave with things that are unsaid, and it doesn't help. But if you write it all down and you get the time to edit it and you give it to them, you know, and they can take their time to read it and absorb it, I think that can help people get things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least you know you have said everything that was on your chest. And so I would say do that. And when it comes to doctors and when it comes to disability benefit and things like that, for God's sake, do not be afraid to write complaints letters. Do not be afraid to get angry and to write to everyone, even if you have to write to your local MP, even if you have to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau. And yeah, I know it's hard to find the motivation and the just, you know, to just dredge it up from your exhausted soul to fight your corner when you feel like everything is against you. But seriously, do it. There have been incidences in my life where, you know, mental health care has been so shoddy that only writing complaints letters has rectified the situation and kept me on this planet, basically. You know, there have been times with bad mental health care that it's been like, if this decision goes ahead, I'm going to have no choice but to kill myself. You know, and I was, at this point, I was literally recording videos, which I was going to schedule on YouTube after my suicide, to be like, hi guys, this is why I'm dead. That's how close it got. And complaints letters turned it around. Complaints letters made these people realise, again, this is what we are doing to this person, and they did an about turn, and it's years later I'm still here. So seriously, complain, rant, complain, speak your corner and fight, because those are the things that I kick myself over for not doing that kind of shit when I was a teenager. So do that. And if you feel you can't, find someone, even if it's an online friend in another country, find someone who you can tell these are the things that are going wrong, and they can put it in a letter, they can give it to you, you can send it to them. You know, I'm sure you must know someone who's kind of like me, who has a bit of a big mouth and is easily angered, and will write your angry rants for you if you need them to. So yes, fight against these things, and good luck. And I am going to shut up now because this is very, very, very long indeed. I'm so sorry for waffling for very long. And yes, my therapy experience rant is still to come, but yes, more mental health rants to come. The ball of wool is still unravelling, and I feel it will be good to just throw the rants out completely, get all the rants out and move on. And, but yes, if you have a rant, leave it below. I am shutting up now. Over and out. Bye bye.